So, do you believe that the addition of having topical small molecules impact our topical steroids and potentially impact, using less topical steroids in patients?
Yeah, it is a good conversation to have. And I've had this conversation many times actually in this last year because of topical ruxolitinib, Opzelura, coming to the market last fall. So it's a JAK inhibitor topically. And then we have others coming up, right? We likely to have tapinarof and roflumilast, which are two other new topicals with different mechanisms of action, also likely to be approved for AD someday.
Hmm.
So that's three of them. So one already out and two more coming up that are non-steroid options. So broadly, I would say I love it. I think it's great. We in dermatology have needed innovation in the topical realm. We've had lots of innovation in the biologic realm,
Hmm.
tons of it. We've had some innovation oral recently, but topical therapy has just been stuck, right? It's just been stuck forever. And so I love these new products, and patients love them. Patients actually don't want to be using steroids anymore. They like anything but triamcinolone. I've been using triamcinolone since I was 8, or oh my God, you're giving me another tub of that stuff. And so I would say to dermatologists, be careful these days about just giving another tube of triamcinolone to your AD patients. That may be what you want to do, and that may be what you've done your whole career. But I tell you, patients that I talk to seem to hate it. They don't want the same old thing. They're not looking for the same old thing. And I think you're going to lose those patients actually if you just kind of do the same thing, steroids, steroids, steroids. So the problem is, again, coming back to it, is the insurance companies and the costs. So really, that is the issue. It's not the
Hmm.
MOA, and it's not safety, and it's not efficacy. Because, for example, Opzelura for AD, it works great. It works great. The efficacy results are great. The itch results are great for that cream. And the patients that I've treated with it love it. So it's really not about efficacy and safety in this case. It's about insurance barriers because any branded new topical is going to be $500 plus a tube, $1,000 plus a tube, and insurance companies are just not going to go there until patients have tried topical steroids. So my advice kind of to the drug companies is we need to get these drugs in the hands of dermatologists so they can realize that they're awesome drugs, that patients like them, kind of get the field of dermatology kind of away from topical steroids, in my view, because I think these drugs are better for chronic use. So yes, steroids can knock down things quickly. I just don't think they're great for chronic long-term use. And that these other drugs really are. So how do you get expensive drugs, approved and used? Again, I think that's just going to take time.
Hmm.
It's going to take time to get them, into the hands of dermatologists and get them using them and maybe sampling heavily or maybe discounts or I don't know. But that's really the main issue. It's not efficacy and safety in this case.
Hmm. So, speaking a little bit more about Opzelura, it is a JAK, like you mentioned. So, it has that black box warning, but right now it's not a large deterrent. So derms are just using it. As you laugh, it's laughable that it has one.
Yeah.
So could it having that black box warning, because it does have one, could that prove to be a disadvantage to the brand once we have tapinarof, roflumilast, once they join the market? Could that be a disadvantage?
Oh my gosh. I'm laughing because here I'm going to publicly say that I just disagree completely with the FDA's labeling. And so I'm going to put myself on record here in a public forum that I really disagree with the labeling on Opzelura cream. And people say, well, they saw drug levels in the blood. I don't care if you saw drug levels in the blood. Those are maximum use studies usually where the patients are bathing in the drug, and then, okay, you can detect it in the blood. That does not mean that it carries the same safety risks as oral administration. Most patients have limited BSA. They're not bathing in the drug. Your drug levels are going to be 0 to very low, probably not even biologically active. I would challenge the FDA really to say that the blood levels that's seen in the studies are biologically active and actually doing anything. So I think it's unfortunate, that kind of label. And I think it mirrors what we saw years ago with the protopic and the Elidel labels with lymphoma. And that's been dismissed over the years, that, topical protopic and Elidel have no relationship to lymphoma. So I think over time, could dermatologists just see it as, oh, it's just another protopic Elidel thing and they'll ignore it? I don't know. It might affect some prescribing, but my message, and I think a lot of other key opinion leaders' messages is that it's safe, and that dermatologists should not be worried about the boxed warnings for Opzelura cream. And so I think I'm not alone really in my statement is what I'm saying. There are a few people out there who say, well, there's detectable drug in the blood, therefore they have to have that. I just disagree with that stance. So I'm glad that we're not seeing much of an effect of the box warnings on use. I want people to use that drug because I think patients really like it. And I think it's a good thing for patients and it works well.
So we're mentioning that, it has really great efficacy. Patients like it. It's non-steroidal. So we have one pending, 2 more for the AD market. Do we think that we'll likely see a delay in patients going on to biologics and JAKs because they're now, those moderate folks, so to speak, are being well controlled with these topical small molecules?
You bring up another hot topic. So
that's what I do.
Yeah. And I'm going to take us back a little bit. I know it's not about psoriasis, but I'm a psoriasis guy too. And I like the analogies with psoriasis. So I'm going to bring up that. For years in psoriasis, we had this 10% BSA. Mm-hmm. And, in studies and insurance companies. And if you didn't have 10% BSA, you didn't get in the biologic trial, and you didn't really get it through insurance unless you lied, on your exam form. I think that's unfortunate. And there's nothing magical about 10% BSA for psoriasis or for eczema. So there's nothing magical. So the patient who has 7, 8, 9% BSA is basically the same as someone who has 10, 11, 12. So it's unfortunate because it keeps those really good drugs out of the hands of people who need them. And so with the IPC, the International Psoriasis Council, I put forth a new definition as part of an IPC member and an IPC process to change the definition for candidate for systemic therapy for psoriasis to say 10% BSA or failure of topicals or involvement of special areas. And I'm bringing this up, so broadening the criteria for use of systemic therapy in psoriasis. I'm bringing this up because AD, it's kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. If someone's suffering, let's say they have 7, 8, 9% BSA, but they could have a huge amount of itch, right? They might not have a lot of BSA, but their itch might be horrible. And itch usually is the dominant symptom that's impairing quality of life. So why not be able to treat that patient, with Dupixent or Rinvoq or whatever? And so having that criteria of, having failed topicals, if they've used triamcinolone, that particular patient forever, I think they should be allowed to use it. So it's not quite what you were asking. You were asking kind of the opposite, sort of treating people who beyond 10% maybe with topicals to avoid biologics. And I went the other direction. broadening and kind of opening up use of systemics for people with lower BSA, which I think should be done for eczema also.
Why is that so important?
Well, because of quality of life, because of human beings. So I'm talking about a human being sitting in front of me in my office. And I'm going to throw out an example. A made-up patient, 8% BSA, and they've been using a tub of triamcinolone, and their itch is horrible. So why can't you give them a systemic agent, right? Just because they have 8%? That's kind of weird, I think. They're in need. They're in need of that. And so you can help them, but you might have this barrier that's a weird barrier that is not really based in science. So the other direction, let's talk about for a second. So I think anybody beyond 20% should never even be treated with topicals. If you got beyond 20% body surface area and you're giving out triamcinolone, I think I'm going to be bold here and say I think that's bordering on malpractice.
But what about the top, like Opzelura, use in someone with a BSA 20?
Right. So I'm just saying beyond 20, I think it's easy. Mm-hmm. When we go to 10 to 20 body surface area, then they would qualify for systemic, but I'm okay actually treating those people topically because it's not a huge amount of coverage to do if the patients want to do it, if the doctors want to do it. So yes, I guess then there will be people in that mid-range, let's call them 10 to 20%, that may never go on a biologic or a JAK because they're going to use one of these newer topicals that is going to be able to control their disease. So I do think you'll see some of the systemic therapies being taken by the new topicals, but I don't know if it's going to be a lot.
Interesting. All right. Well, that is all the time we have today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to connect with us. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me.